it's very important to do the initial research, do the homework, to get the high conviction in the names. It's so important to have that firsthand knowledge of the company. I'm always looking for growth stocks. So I'm looking for high revenue growth of 40% or higher. And a big bonus is a founder-led company with significant shares. When I see this, it really gets my attention. I've always done better with stocks that have a business model that's very easy to understand. So you want a business model where you could easily explain it to a child very quickly, because the more complicated ones I found just tend to not do as well. Finding and researching high potential stocks. So we get to be early adopters, we get to go shopping, we get to learn a lot about new technology. This is one of my favorite things to do when I'm researching new names. So to share with you a little bit about the strategy that I use. Okay, let's jump in. But before that, all of my favorite screens to try to get some names on my radar, right, that I have to research further. So I mentioned earlier, I'm sharing with you all the details of my favorite screens. And I'll tell you, this whole process of putting all of this information together for you guys is really a learning experience for me too, because it's been wonderful just getting this all down together and really solidifying the entire trading process into one presentation. So it's been a great adventure to put this together for you, and I hope that you'll find it valuable. So these are the screens, all of these that I've found very useful over the years. And especially, I'll go through them all very quickly, but this is an episodic screen, right? This is a screen that I run. The power screen is only after a severe bear market. And daily screens, I'm looking at the action. These are all weekly screens. And then finally, I have an usual finding the next Apple quarterly screen. So let's go through them. Power screen. This one typically identifies one or two or more of the big leaders of a new bull market. I found that anecdotally from running it over the years. And what I'm doing is I'm starting right after I see a follow through day. I'm looking at the first, the bottom, the first rally day. And what I'm doing is I'm running a screen that's showing me the top percentage price movers. So this is a purely price screen. You'll see though that all of my screens also have a minimum liquidity of 20 million average daily dollars traded a day. And then they need to have $15 share price. So I'm looking right away, I'm screening out a lot of less liquid names. And what I do is I run this for about 8-9 weeks after a follow through day. So I just ran the last screen yesterday. And I sort that by percentage price move. I focus on the top names, but I look at all the charts. So I focus on the top 100, but I'm looking at all the charts to see what's moving and running that weekly. Also, I'm looking at gaps for the day. So 10% gap ups, and I have the minimum liquidity on all my screens. I'm going to share with you some information on super gaps in terms of a study that I did with my good friend and portfolio manager, Ajay Jani. And I'm going to share some information that's never been shared before. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here, what I'm doing is just 10% gap, and I'm looking for that criteria that I'm going to share with you later. Okay, and in terms of daily action, I want to see what the top percentage price movers are. I also, for the week, I want to look at the early stage names. So IPOs within the last several years. That also, I'm always looking for growth names. So here I am screening for 40% revenue growth or better. And then I'm looking for price move strength. So I'm looking for the percentage price move from the first day closing price. On a weekly basis, I'm also looking at what names are performing best for the year to date. And I'm focusing on the top 100 charts, screening those by percentage price move for the year. And also noting, when I screen, I see the industry group next to each name. So I'm noting any industry groups that are performing very well on this screen as well. The rare jewel screen, we've talked about this in webinar 1 and 2 in terms of IPOs that perform very well in the IPO advanced phase, and I'm monitoring those. I keep a list of those manually, and I'm monitoring since they're going through the institutional due diligence phase. I'm just watching for any first mature base to form. And then finally, one of these screens for the weekly, I meet with a group of peers, and we do that probably every month or couple months, and we each research interesting growth stories. Stocks that have strong fundamentals, and I maintain a list of those. What's great is we share this information, so each of us are doing research, and then we have the opportunity to share it. And I maintain a list of those names, and what I'm looking for is the technical action to confirm the fundamental story. So I may love the company, love the products, but I'm monitoring how the stock performs, and do the technicals confirm the story? And then finally is finding the next Apple. I think at one point Apple had these types of numbers. You notice that most of my other screens are price-based. I do put in revenue growth. This is one of the only screen that I run that has both earnings and revenue. These are stellar numbers. If you run this screen, you'll see that, you're only going to get a handful of names, if that. So I'm monitoring these. This list doesn't change that often because it's usually based on earnings. And so I'm running that on a quarterly basis just to make sure I don't miss some stellar company that has these kinds of numbers. Okay, so I think that's it on the screens. Yes, it is. So let's jump into market research. Richard, you and I were talking about when I went to the mall and was watching when all of these people lined up to go to the Tesla store. So this is in pictures, my research for Tesla years and years back. And this is an actual snapshot where I was experiencing a huge line for people willing to put a deposit down on the Model 3s. You could see that I'm reading a lot about the company as well, and test driving the product early on, because it's so important to have that firsthand knowledge of the company. So these are just, on this graphic, I'm just showing you some of the things I like to do when I start researching a company. So definitely, if I can, visit the company, buy and use the products, definitely have that firsthand experience and knowledge, learn about the management, the leader. I'm checking social media trends, are their products trending? Do they have campaigns online? I'm talking to the younger generations. So that's kind of like that influence from Peter Lynch. What are the younger generations interested in? What are they buying? What companies do they like? It's beneficial to talk to company employees when I visit the company. And then I'm reading a lot of different perspectives, right? About the company, the customers, competitors. But in the end, I'm coming to my own conclusion. But I am doing a lot of reading and researching. And then, very important, the size of the market. What's the total addressable market and any drivers potentially for future growth. And finally, there is a game changers checklist that I'm going to share with you today. And that has been developed. I worked with a good friend and portfolio manager, Ryan Warsh, and we designed this game changers checklist, and it's designed to flag potential future disruptive names. So we looked at other names, what is driving potential disruptors, and we tried to put a checklist all together, and I'm sharing that for you. And we've been using that to evaluate companies. So let's go through it. The game changers checklist, well, starts with, we've already covered these. For the life cycle trade, it looks at, life cycle phase, it looks at pattern, rare jewel, liquidity, where is the stock in terms of the turbulence zone from a technical perspective. And then we look at technicals. Now, the screen is going to be busy. Don't try to read the whole thing, but I'm giving you this information so you have it for your reference later, and I'll just point out a few areas. So again, we're looking for that power screen. Is the stock one of the top percentage price movers? Because that could signal that it's going to be a new leader in this new rally phase or new bull market. We're looking for super gaps, which I'm going to go through the criteria of that with you later. Looking for super tight action, technical action, huge volumes on the positive side, skyscraper volume. How's the up volume compared to the down volume? What's that ratio? And some others that I've listed here. Okay, so what are we looking for? This is really very key. So when you test out the company's product, is it inspiring this like aha moment? So you can have that feeling. Think about it when you had your first iPhone in your hand and realized I have a computer in my hand for the first time. Now it's not like nothing, but when Apple first came out with it, you could tell they were years and years ahead of the competition. When I first test drove the Tesla Model S, it was like a rocket ship taking off. And I could just tell in experiencing that product that they were years ahead of the competition. Another key is game-changing news. And I'll give you some examples of that. One that comes to my mind right away that I have listed here is when Amazon exited Shopify's business and sent those customers to Shopify. So, none of that was priced in. It was huge game-changing news, and it did start a huge move in Shopify. So in terms of sentiment, it's a bit contrarian, but think of it as, I think Facebook was surveyed early on. The managers were surveyed to see what's their opinion of Facebook. And it was one of the most hated stocks by fund managers. And so, a heavily shorted stock, a stock where fund managers don't have positions yet, that starts to turn, that demand can then later drive a run in the stock. And then I do pay attention to social media trends. So is the product recently trending? Do they have a campaign that's very successful? What comes to mind, and I was late to this game, is e.l.f. beauty products. They had a great campaign that I think drove their stock performance. Okay. So what else do we look for? We talked about the turn in the market. So the market's very important. That's going to set the stage for some of these new leaders. So also we look at key themes in terms of sector move. And I'm always looking for growth stocks. So I'm looking for high revenue growth of 40% or higher. And a big bonus is a founder-led company with significant shares. When I see this, it really gets my attention. So I'm looking at, for the profile of a game changer, the criteria that Ryan Warsh and I developed, this is what we're looking at. How many of these apply to the company? So is the CEO visionary? Is the product disruptive or addictive? So these are just some examples, Starbucks, obviously addictive, Monster beverage. You can see the disruptive names here. I've always done better with stocks that have a business model that's very easy to understand. So you want a business model where you could easily explain it to a child very quickly. Because the more complicated ones I've found just tend to not do as well. Name of a company is used as a verb. So you can think of Google it, and of course, you can think of others right now as well that would fit in that category. And competitive moat. So years ahead of the competition, we talked about that. And high barriers to entry. This is the case usually, but not always in a game changer. Okay, and how many of these apply to the company? Reoccurring predictable revenue, revenue sharing. So think of the platforms, Amazon taking a cut of each of the products that goes out, Shopify offering a platform, or subscription models, Netflix, for example. The network effect, you can think of the social media sites, And a lot of times the contrarian, again, no one believes it. So think of Tesla, where everyone was betting that Elon Musk's company and his venture would fail. And then absolutely critical is the macro trends. They need to favor the company's products and services because we want a huge market potential for this growth name if they're going to be a game changer. Okay. Oh, so Richard, I included your tweet here. Remember this? This is like a year back. And Richard really got me thinking with his question here. How do you judge the potential of a stock? And I included this here because if you go back to this tweet, there were some really great answers. And it made me think to try to summarize very quickly in tweet length, what do I focus on when I'm trying to identify the potential of a stock? So we went through these, but I included this for your reference. I mean, again, huge total addressable market, founder-led is always a plus. You're looking for awe-inspiring products. And then, of course, the macro trends that favor the company. So how do we get the conviction in these companies? I wanted to share with you some research that I did. I was digging for some emails and I ran across these. This is from 2010 for Tesla when I did initial research. And it shows kind of some of the stories that I was reading, the technicals that I was looking at, the fundamentals that I was considering. And at this point, I had a position in Tesla and I was researching the company even further. So I just wanted to share that with you where, it's very important to do the initial research, do the homework to get the high conviction in the names. And then I ran across Shopify too. And I shared both of these at the time with a group of colleagues where we share research on companies. And so this I'm sharing with you today. And it's just kind of a list of things that I was looking at. I had noted, Amazon closing their competing business, huge potential game changing, that they had, reoccurring revenue, listed some of their customers, what platforms they were used on. So very important to do that research for high potential stocks. So you can have that conviction in the names.